So we will start the work session of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, December 9th, 2024. We do have a quorum, but we are missing Norman and Christine.
Behind you,
So first we'll go through the regular business meeting. For the invocation tonight, I thought we could do a moment of silence for John McElroy.
Are we allowed to publicly disclose that time's passed? I don't know. Kelly's.
I could check with Kelly, but I think enough.
If there's some stat board members present, it might be good. I was just thinking, I hate for them to just suddenly learn it if they haven't heard already.
You would be appropriate. I just know, just this morning you told me.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
I'll check with Kelly.
Deborah and Rochelle, but other stat board members maybe.
I don't know. Stephanie knows. Is it in
She was telling me she was trying to call them so they wouldn't just learn it.
Right. Yes.
Suddenly learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone want to do the flag pledge?
I can say aye.
And then just note, we do have the minutes for the October 28th and the November 11th work session. We got approval. For the approval of the agenda, we are, Matt has sent out an email about adding the amendment to the budget onto the meeting tonight because the audit's just about done and that all needs to be done. And this is for anybody who hasn't been through the process, Carrie. Yeah, you have been through the process. So when this, honestly, as a CPA, is bizarre to me. I've been harping on it to Matt, but it's not his fault.
Thanks for taking that one.
Yeah. With the city budget, you know, a budget is your guesswork and your plan for revenues and expenses, and it's more to control your expenses and keep it within what you project for your revenues. And so you have your budget, and then you compare your actual numbers throughout the year to your budget, and then you see how close you were. Well, in the governmental budget world, after the year is finished and you have your actual numbers, you have to go back and amend your budget to agree to those actual numbers. I don't get it.
State of Georgia requires a balanced budget, so in order to make sure that your budget balances at the end of the year, you go back and you amend your budget to hit your actual. The problem is because of accounting, particularly governmental accounting, it takes 6 months to get the final. So here we are.
It's not like we have to do personally and adjust our expenses, huh?
Right, right. So the actual numbers are the actual, and then the budgeted numbers, and then what's quirky to me too is you're not actually amending the budget to what the actual numbers were. You're just amending certain things for some reason.
Government.
I don't know.
Government.
But, so this annual budget amendment is up.
Yes. You can tell us it's Barbara's favorite thing of the year. Now, I will commend you, because usually we do this in January, so.
I feel like I heard the speech last year.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
And I mean, to Barbara's point, I mean, and what Todd was saying, I mean, technically it is illegal to overspend an individual line item, and by Georgia law. And so there's things that we can't anticipate that are going to happen, i.e., we had to replace a big section of our roof, last year. I mean, that, it happens, and so you have to make adjustments in your budget to account for those things. Whether or not that makes sense or not, I'm not going to say. I'm just saying that's the rules, and to avoid a finding from Jimmy in our audit saying that we're not playing by the rules. You
We're playing
know,
by the rules.
it's
It just doesn't make
it's
sense.
just a simple process.
It's like speeding past
I know, I feel like I'm all of those clients that come in to have their tax returns done, and they're arguing with me about what the rules are, and how stupid they are, how unfair this is, and it's like, well, I get all of that, but it doesn't change the rule. It is what it is.
So are you saying we're adding something?
Yes.
So what she meant to say is,
Yes.
when we adopt the agenda under item X, the consent agenda, or item 10, we are going to add year-end fiscal year 24 budget amendment.
And that's under consent agenda?
Yeah, we'll just put it on the consent agenda.
Is that accurate?
Yes. Very accurate. Yes. So I'm asking for you all to support amendment to the agenda.
An amendment, so we can make an amendment.
Exactly. So then we will have a consent agenda.
Now, if it's on the consent agenda, do we still make,
A motion to approve the
Mo-
consent
consent
agenda.
agenda.
Is that right?
Yep.
no, but I
Yes.
mean, when we're approving the agenda, do
We add
the item on the consent
year-end
agenda?
fiscal year 2024 budget.
You've got the
amendment.
notes, so you can say
Sure.
it.
Yeah, but we'll
In
put
that
it under consent
chicken
agenda,
scratch.
which will be
Yeah.
the next thing on the
I
agenda.
wrote it with my feet, leave me alone.
Okay, and then under new business, we've got a bid for the janitorial services for the city. That's one we do every couple of years. We don't do it every year, do we?
No.
Every couple of years.
And that
So-
covers City Hall, Police Department, Public Works. And then item B is a companion item to that where it's going to be what we call a porter service for the grow area. So someone take out the trash, clean the bathroom, walk the tables down, pick up loose garbage, and just taking care of the space.
So I noticed under the janitorial bids, we're not taking the lowest bid.
Yeah, so the lowest bidder did not meet our insurance requirements.
Okay, I was just questioning.
On advice of our legal folks.
Okay, that
We
does
should
it.
not disregard.
Okay. Any other questions? Then we have the award of bid for Briscoe Park and the splash pad services. And this is an annual that we do with them,
And I asked your same question on this one.
because they weren't the lowest bidder either.
Yeah.
So a little bit that you see that was in your packet, the $77,000 there. Lisa did a great job of looking. You know, I've learned as you get bids, there always is an apparent low bidder, but you're really gonna look at the bid to make sure that everything is included in there, and especially when you do really complicated projects like the intersection improvement project we're gonna do. You know, Larry really combed over. We have those unit price ones where you're, it's 40 items and they're multiplying things. I mean, it's possible folks make errors. And in this case, the low bidder, the apparent low bidder, left out all the programming work that we asked them to do. So lifeguards, all the swim lessons,
Oh.
all
Little things like that.
I mean, there was a huge variation in the bids.
Yeah.
So if you add that to what, Lisa did some calculations, if you add that, then they're about, with the other three, about 140 or something like that. Now Positively is at 92. They're a local company. We're with them now. They do a good job, and we want to, we're happy that we're able to keep them. They do good work. And it is more than what we've been used to paying, but the splash pad is included in that, and those splash pads require quite a bit of hands-on maintenance, almost as much as a pool, if not more so. For some reason, they're a lot more popular than pools. People love them.
And dogs love them too.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody good with that? Then we'll have confirming Don Britt for the Tourism and Trade Association for another term. And then we've had Snellville Youth Commission Advisory Board has put forth Richard Barnell to join their advisory board for item E. So I'll nominate him. Item F, Resolution 2024-16 to add us to the GERMA for the Georgia First Responder PTSD program. Do you want to just talk about that a second?
So that's in response to a recently passed state law that provides liability insurance coverage for first responders that have experienced a traumatic event. Whether that unfortunately is seeing a fellow officer killed in the line of duty or injured in the line of duty, then they have specific insurance coverages that help with PTSD treatment for those officers. So we received a quote from GERMA to add that to our policy. GERMA is our liability insurance provider, to add that coverage for our officers.
Much needed. And then we have item G, 24-17. This, I also did put it on the work session agenda, even though we'd be rushing across it here, but this is in response to that judgment that City of Melton received. And we could talk about a little more detail in the work session agenda. But I think it's important that the city joins in on support of, that amicus brief for that. We can talk about that a little bit more in the work session. And then we have award a bid for the gravity sewer extension. This is for that area behind the UCB Bank that was identified that they're still on septic tank. And for us to do this, the intersection improvement, we've got to get that moved out. And so we'll be connecting them to the sewer. So this is the bid for that. Any?
Just one question, Matt, on that. As we do that, will that provide us the capacity to take care of any development if the adjacent properties up to Tommy's develop? Will that give us sewer capacity to kind of?
That's a good question. I don't know that.
Okay.
I know this certainly wasn't an issue to get this one parcel connected to that, but I can check into that before. But we did go the route that was recommended to us by the Gwinnett Water Sewer Department.
And then that will be it for the meeting. Any correspondence? Any city attorney's report?
Rather than agenda items.
Okay, and we'll have a executive session. Next we'll have, so the first thing on the work session agenda is housing market update. Good to see you again.
Before you start, can I just make a quick introduction?
Absolutely.
So this is Matt Elder. He has his name tag on, unlike some of you.
He's harassing me.
I don't have my
Mayor, I have a question. Do we have to do yearly
Evaluations
of the city
I
manager?
thought about that upstairs when we were talking and he told us he was breaking the rules. Come on in here,
We're a
buddy.
righteous cause.
what they all say.
Matt Elder is a fantastic resource to all of Gwinnett County. You know, part of what his responsibilities is to understand housing trends in the county, and the fact that we have a resource in our backyard like this is something that we feel like as staff would be good for us to hear collectively as a group. You know, it's no secret that there's a lot of development interest in the city of Snellville from different types of developers. And Matt gave a recent presentation to a group of representatives from Partnership Gwinnett here at City Hall, where he shared a lot of good housing data information that we thought would be good for us to hear and talk about in case there's something we want to go fully. We're going to talk about more fully during our retreat in February. And so I just want to provide that little bit of background on why he is here. And I'll turn it over to him to go ahead and lead us on.
First, thank you so much for the invitation to be here tonight. It's an honor. I'm here to talk about every favorite topic, housing. A little bit biased for me because it is what we do day in, day out, but my division actually does two things in the county. We administer the HUD grants the county receives annually as an entitlement community. We've been a part of the city of Snellville for a very long time, looking into the partnership on different facility and infrastructure projects that may occur within the city limits in our low-income qualified areas. But the most recent thing we've added and why we kind of started the division is the affordable housing strategy implementation and development. And so that's what I'm kind of here to talk to you guys about today, more so about some of the data. And Matt's right, I was here just a few months ago talking about high-level housing data from the county overall. But for tonight, I wanted to kind of focus more in terms on what is happening in the city in terms of the data trends, some comparative stuff historically and also with the county, to kind of look at what we've learned in the last few years in terms of comprehensive housing study and a new unified plan, some things there as well. And for the record, there's my name tags on, so this is my car when I got in tonight. Good thing. All right, so let's start with the historical demographics for the city. So what you have here is a three different year snapshot of the demographics from race. So you have 10 years ago in 2012, 5 years in 2018, and then the most recent data, 2022. For the record, there's a new data set coming out on Thursday, so this data is going to be slightly out of date in literally 3 days, but it will be hopefully pretty close. As you can see, there's been significant change in terms of the overall demographics of the city of Snellville. At 10 years ago, you were at almost 65% white majority population, right? As of the most recent data, 39% white, which is the exact same percentage as the county overall. You've seen significant growth in your Black, African American, Asian, and other populations specifically. This speaks to the overall diversity of our community as a whole, but the diversity here in Snellville. In fact, it's a place where people want to come from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. You've made it a place that is open, welcome, and embrace diversity overall. And it's a testament to your leadership, your ability to want to create a community that people want to be a part of, not one that people don't want to come to or want to be a part of. So look at the demographics of ethnicity, 10 years ago, 90-10 Hispanic to non-Hispanic, or not Hispanic. The most odd thing about the data was that there was a pop 5 years ago in terms of a 22%, then went back to almost where it was 10 years ago. I'm not a sociologist, I can't explain why the population suddenly spiked and went back down. We saw this in a couple other parts of the county as well. It could have been something came into the area that really brought a significant demographic driver to the area short term, probably in the rental or short-term ownership market, then quickly moved on to something else. It happens sometimes in different demographics. I can't give you a specific reason, but you are obviously, in an ethnicity standpoint, more diverse than you were previously. But it's not as significant as the racial categories was. And if you look at your gender, your age breakouts, it's relatively the same as it was 10 years ago. 47 today to 46% male, 54, 53 female, 22% children all the way through. Lost a little bit, 1% in the 1864 category, and that percentage went to 65 plus, a little bit of a sign of a graying community overall, right? But your median age dropped by 1 year over the last 10 years. So what we're seeing here is a changing demographic in terms of the race of the population, but from an age, gender standpoint, even ethnicity standpoint, it's staying relatively static over the last 10 years. So a little bit different from the county there. The county's a little bit younger, upper 30s median age, a little bit more female, a little bit more Hispanic Latino population, but nothing that's out there to say something crazy is going on, right? I was excited with demographics to give you a baseline of what we're going to talk about with housing, because you need to know who is living in your housing, not just that it's how many units or it's this kind of housing, stuff like that. So looking at housing. There are just over 330,000 housing units in Gwinnett County and just over 7,000 units in Snellville. They are both single-family dominated. 96% of the housing in the city of Snellville is single-family detached or attached. 78% of the same kind of housing is in Gwinnett County. So more than 3 in every 4 homes in Gwinnett County, or more than almost 9 in every 10 homes in the city of Snellville is a single-family home. Now, I will do one caveat. This multifamily number down here does not include the recent developments in Town Center that will certainly change this. And I expect to see a number shift up, maybe by a point or two in the new data set. But this is all census data. It's a trailing number, so it takes a little bit longer to get to where it needs to be. But I'm hoping to see that bump up a little bit. So just understand that I know you guys have done more multifamily than is reflective here, of course.
Well, there's only actually that one apartment complex that's built.
Yeah.
Would that be, this is only built environment?
Yes, only built.
Yeah.
Only built and existing. It's a good question. The owner occupied versus, or tenure I should say, is 80% owner occupied, 20% renter occupied. So not a huge number, obviously. But when you look at the single family, just over 7,000 total single family units, is at 96%, right? That means that approximately, this is an estimate, 1,400 of those 7,000 units are being occupied by renters. So there's a significant demand for renter-type housing, style housing in the community. It's being met now in the single-family marketplace. But just like in the county overall, where we have 1 in every 3 homes is renter-occupied, the same kind of demand is existing here in Snellville as it does in the county for a housing type that allows for rental solutions. And that's not just multifamily, it's not just apartments. There's a whole host of housing solutions we're going to talk about in just a little while that offer rental solutions along with ownership that can look, feel, and exist in the same ecosystem as your traditional suburban neighborhoods. And I'm happy to take questions throughout the entire thing. I'll stop at the end, but I know I keep going a little fast, so I apologize. So age housing. Overall, the city of Snellville's housing stock is roughly 10 years older than the county overall. 72% of all housing in Snellville was built prior to 2000. So why is that an important factor? That means that what was 3 in every 4 homes in Snellville is now more than 20 years old at least. At 20 years old, if a house is not properly maintained, your roofs, your water heaters, your HVAC units, your furnaces, whatever it may be, those big life system sized homes begin to either go bad or become in a state of repair. Now, I think we all mentioned at this point, but it's about 1 in every 4 homes in America that have more than $300 in their savings account to pay for some kind of a sudden expense or repair. I can tell you, somebody just had their dishwasher go bad in my 2-year-old house, that costs more than $300. And for a lot of the families that we deal with, and the work that I do with CDBG specifically, they can't afford a $300 repair, let alone a $1,000+ repair of a roof or an HVAC system. So when we see an aging stock like this, we identify there's a need for preservation programs and solutions that can help to rehabilitate some of these homes, preserve your existing housing structure, allow your residents to stay safely and securely housed long-term, and not force them to move on because of dilapidation or potential deconstruction of housing situation. Housing costs. All right, so the blue bars are Gwinnett County, the red line is City of Snellville, median home sales price. In January 2021, before the pandemic took a hold of the housing market, median sales price, middle point was $264,000 in City of Snellville. It was $291,000 in the county. At its peak, December 2022, the median home sales price in Snellville was just under $400,000. As of the most recent data, which was October, it's at $366,990. The county overall is at $422,000. That means that from January 2021 to October 2024, the city has seen a 39% increase in median home sales price overall across the city. That outpaces the county, it's just under the county's pace at 45% increase in median home sales prices. Again, these are median, this is not the average price. The average price is in the 400s easy for both of us. But on a median basis, and I can tell you, I looked at Zillow just before I came here, you can find about 17 properties under $422,000 in Gwinnett County right now, and you can find about 5 under $366 in the city of Snellville. The average price is significantly higher. So around. Again, blue county, red Snellville. In Q1 2021, the average rent in Snellville was just under $1,500, $1,494. As of the end of Q3, that's at $1,882. Remember back to that 20% renter occupied, 1,400 single family units likely renter occupied? That's where it's at right there. That's those peaks that you've seen right there, that's the increases. That is the highest it's ever been historically in the city of Snellville for average rents. This is all CoStar data that I pulled just this week to make sure it's up to date. The county right now is at $1,629. From Q1 2021 to Q3 2024, City of Snellville's rental costs have increased by 26%, while the county's has increased by 19%. And some may see this number and say, well, it's less than $400 a month in rent, it's not really a big deal. But I can tell you from experience, both professionally and personally, $400 per year is just between putting somebody's food on the table or not, coming up to an eviction notice or to the lights being cut off. It's a big number. And so what we see here kind of underlines, both in the county and the city, that demand for that rental style of housing. This is a supply and demand curve, without question. If the supply's not there to meet the demand, the prices are going to go up, and they have. Unfortunately, as the ownership market's gone up at the same time, it's created this very odd effect we've never seen before, where both are rising almost the exact same kind of rate, and we're looking to see where the off-ramp is, and despite the fact that supplies have increased, we're not really seeing it quite yet, despite interest rates coming down, despite the fact that we have more multifamily being developed.
So Matt, I have a question for you. The Housing Choice Section 8 figures that have come out, their average, or the amount they'll pay has gone up 50% from the 22 numbers to 24 numbers. Or is that averaged in there? Because what I'm seeing is people are being squeezed out of the open market and being replaced by people who are in the government subsidized market. And it's creating a huge issue for our single parents who are struggling, who don't qualify for financial assistance, and they're having to leave and go elsewhere.
So, two things. The Housing Choice Voucher max rents are based on fair market rents, not on average rents. They are correcting to the 2 years they didn't correct in 22 and 23, so we've seen significant increases across the board. At the same time, the area median incomes that are also used to kind of who's eligible to receive those assistance, to talk to the income question, are also increasing at about 25 to 30% increase as well.
You can't get in the program.
So that's a different conversation, because that program is run by the state of Georgia through the Department of Community Affairs. The county has no say in that. The state runs it for 159 of the 157, 52 of the state's counties. So we have no control of that, because we get calls every day about Section 8. Trust me. Housing choice vouchers are underutilized overall, despite the fact there's never been a high level of demand. And we've talked to DC and the state about the idea that what do we need to do on the ground? Do we need to get on the ground with them and to different landlords, to call different meetings, to try and bring more landlords to the table who are willing to take the voucher and bring more people to the availability? Because we have an occupancy challenge right now. We've got competing forces like you're kind of alluding to. But the fact is that the housing choice voucher is still the most successful ticket we have federally to get to affordable housing, to convert market rate units into affordable housing through just a subsidization, as opposed to trying to just build it.
So we do include subsidized housing in our affordable housing. Is that what you're saying? That is part of our affordable housing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because as of fall of 23, when did Butch leave? So fall of 23, from DCA, we were at approximately 8.6% of our total housing stock, based on your number, was Section 8. So how does that compare to the rest of the county?
8.6 of your total housing stock, or 8.6 of your multifamily apartments?
8.6% of our total housing stock, using the 700 or 7,300 number that you.
I don't have an exact percentage. I think last time I looked, the county was at around 9-ish% overall, so it's on par, but I can't tell you for exactly what's at that.
And again, these are older numbers, so.
Yes, so that has changed some, certainly. Good question. So affordability. Again, just using census data numbers, amount of owner-occupied units in Gwinnett in the county, overall median monthly cost, and then you see here the $10,000 difference between median household income for owner-occupied units only, right? That $10,000 difference comes right here. The conversion from renter to owner in the county is at a lot lower threshold than it has been in the city thus far. When you look at the median rent, this is again a byproduct of the fact that there's that level of renter-occupied units currently, that 1,400 or so, and then the affordability level. 28-30% of all owner-occupied units are considered unaffordable, which means that those homeowners are paying more than 30% of their gross before taxes monthly wages towards their housing costs. That's their mortgage, their utilities, all the bills associated with keeping their housing running. So a little bit higher than the county here, and then at the rental level, it's 57 in the county and 45 overall for the city, a little bit lower here, or a bit lower here because of that $10,000 difference really in terms of the median household income. It makes a big difference when we're talking about potentially a couple $100 between different complexes. Overall, though, what's the most important part of this whole chart though is here at the very bottom. 1 in every 3 households in the county and in Snellville are considered to be unaffordable. They are paying more than 30% of their gross monthly income towards housing costs, regardless if you're an owner or you're a renter. Doesn't matter. You're living in unaffordable housing. All right, challenges and support efforts. Any questions about the data? I like charts a lot. For our unified plan, we are projecting that about 1.56 million people will be in the county by 2050. About 572,000 units of housing will be needed to accommodate that. To meet that demand, in an unchecked market, there will need to be 8,500 units of new and replacement housing produced per year countywide to meet this demand. The unified plan goes on to estimate that about 72% of that needs to come from the annual unincorporated countywide numbers, and just over 20% or 2,365 units per year needs to come from municipalities. It identified demand projections and kind of said that between the unincorporated municipal areas, here's where the demand kind of lies right now. And also took into account some level of land use limitations, but I won't tell you it's perfect. Before I move on, for 2024, in the county unincorporated, we'll be just under 4,000 permitted units for the year. So we're not going to hit our number for this year. I haven't told the municipalities recently, but last time I checked, it was not at 2,300. It was a bit below that. So this is a collective effort to try and meet the overall demand, because if demand continues at this pace and supply doesn't keep up, those other charts are going to go up, 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 up. It also went on to say, what does the affordability in us look like? For households making more than $100,000 a year, this is where 40% of that housing needs to be built. So I deal in affordable housing. That's the world that I work in. I don't care if you make $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year, or $10,000 a year. I want you to live in affordable housing. Pay less than 30% of your gross monthly income towards housing. That's my job. It is not just subsidized housing. It's not just HUD housing. It is housing that can be produced for people who can afford to live there and overcome anything that happens to the bump in the road. Things happen. You get into a car accident, you get sick, your dishwasher goes bad. It happens. If you live in affordable housing, you are very much able to accommodate and deal with that, as opposed to having to panic and try and figure out who you can borrow money from, or can I take out of the savings account, my 401k, can I pull it out early, and try and find a solution. 40% in that 2,075 rental price, or over 310,000 sales price. Now, keep in mind, this is a unified plan. It is an idealist kind of approach, as we just saw. Nothing right now is at 310,000. So just know that I know that as well. A third of the housing for middle income houses, $50,000 to $100,000, or $100,000 per year. Rental prices between $1,250 and $2,075. This is where we're at right now, on the rental side, right in that little pocket, the upper end of it. Sale prices between $150 and $310,000. This is where we were in January 2021, right there in that pocket. And then just under a third of the housing to be developed needs to be for the lowest of our income households. Those making under $50,000 a year as a household. 28%, rental prices below $1,250 and ownership prices below $150. There's one house for sale in Zillow in the entire county at $150,000 or less. It's a burned out unit. $150 to buy it. It's like $126 to buy it. It's not even worth it. Preferences. So we've done a comprehensive housing study in the county. We've done a unified plan. We've done a ton of public outreach and meetings and conversations and surveys and events and picnics and you name it, we've tried it. What we've learned is that the housing preferences in the county overall have never been the same. There are people who are my age, which is 39 years old, who don't have any interest in ever owning a home. Don't want to do it. There are people who are in their 50s and 60s who are looking at becoming empty nesters, who are thinking about the fact that, you know what, I don't want to upkeep this 2,000 plus square foot home. There are people who are in their 20s who are sitting there saying, you know what, I may never leave my parents' home. And there are still many others who are still like, you know what, I want the American dream. I want the white picket fence. I want the front porch with the swing. I want to sip sweet tea out there and say hi to my neighbors and know all of that very, very well. But there's room at the table for everybody. And that changing demographic of preference has certainly created a new challenge for us to try and adjust, because the cookie cutter approach of this neighborhood with the developer with 3 model homes here or there is not what we're seeing a lot of demand for right now in the market, which is why supply is suffering so much. the demographic shifts. We saw the racial shifts overall, but with demographic shifts from different parts of the country and different parts of the world, we're seeing different types of housing different that people want. A lot of people from the Northeast. I was born in Buffalo, New York. I am a carpetbagger. I apologize. Don't hold it against me. I grew up here in Gwinnett. I moved here when I was 4. I didn't have a choice in the matter. But people from that area have brought down with them a lot of different house types they want to see. The multiplexes, the duplexes, the quadplexes, the cottage courts, things like that that are more common brownstones up there as opposed to down here. Housing affordability. I can spend the entire time talking about that. I won't bore you guys with all the details, but at the end of the day, the affordability matters. You just talked earlier about the fact that you're going to do a new custodial contract for people to come and help to clean this facility, your police station, your public works station, some of your parks, senior center, something like that. You want those people to live in your city so they can maybe walk here or be close to here, not to live in Duluth or Norcross or where I live in Houston. Affordability is a key component to that. It's not just about the higher end of the workforce, but about that lowest end, so they take care of the higher end when they're trying to just come in and do their work day in and day out. And the last thing, something you guys have already done a good job at, and that we're trying to get to the county, is targeted redevelopment. Taking a precision approach to redevelopment to say, this is the project, this is the location, this is the moment. We're not gonna miss it, we're not gonna let it pass by us. We're gonna go after it aggressively, we're gonna get what we want, we're gonna tell the developers what we want, we're gonna have them deliver on it no matter what. That approach to redevelopment has to be a key component how we move forward, because it just can't be, hey, we need housing, so let's build a ton of it. That solution doesn't work. We've tried that before. But a targeted, precise approach allows you to say, you know what, I want housing, but I want 20% to be affordable to my workforce. Or I want 30% to be set aside for those maybe have disabilities or have struggle, or maybe 20% for multi-generational housing, or I have seniors living with college students. Leveraging community assets to bring people together and create organic community through a mixed income approach that can allow for your community to grow together, while also realizing that their neighbors are their neighbors and not just the person who they don't want to talk to get out of the car and go into their unit. So, from the county's perspective, things that we've done thus far we've found some success with. We're good by division. I'm a little biased. I like that. I like getting paid every 2 weeks. We rolled Georgia District Community Housing. We passed the International Property Maintenance Code. We did UDO updates, and we did affordable housing investments and incentives. I'm going to go over all this in just a second. Outside of this first one, that's just me. That's it. All right, GIG. We have been something into a 3-year program called Georgia District Community Housing. We picked an unincorporated area of county on the unincorporated side of Norcross along I-85 from Beaver Road basically down to the Cap County line. It is one of the most diverse, one of the most eclectic, and poorest parts of our overall community. That Jimmy Carter Boulevard area, just along 95, the unincorporated side, has been disinvested in, and has been oftentimes forgotten in these conversations for too long. That's our focus area for this. The city of Norcross also is a good community. They're an alumni. They've graduated. We graduate next year. There are cities from across the state and counties that have participated in this program through DCA and the University of Georgia. You do two retreats a year. You form a housing group. You really talk about the focused issues in your focus area that you want to try and focus redevelopment and housing development to come to, and try and pick an area that really needs that kind of investment, not just one that, you're already looking at doing and it's going to get a bunch of money and a bunch of people interested in it. But what's the next thing to happen? How can you incentivize make that happen in an area that has traditionally just been kind of passed through, but no one kind of taken a second look at it? Interpower Maintenance Code. I'm not a code expert. I won't pretend to be, but I know that this has changed the game for a lot of our renters in the county. This gives our code enforcement officers the ability to now receive a complaint from a renter that the unit is in unlivable conditions, and now enter said unit and do a interior property inspection as opposed to just an exterior property inspection. This applies to multifamily units that are rented and to extended stays. With the passage of HB 404 this last legislative session and the Safe and Home Act that now requires that all rental units be in a habitable state, I don't know what that means, but based on what our law department has shared, this legislation has significantly, it has more than exceeds the requirement of the state law, and it empowers our code enforcement to do a lot more for our renters to give additional protections beyond what the state law allows for. I don't think slumlords are any kind of a secret to anybody. We've all unfortunately had to deal with them at different times in our different communities. This gives us a tool locally to combat that issue. And we made some adjustments to what the ICC standard was, a couple little tweaks, but it was pretty much what they had already written out.
Are you using that to combat the unpermitted
Pad split.
Pad splits.
multifamily.
boarding house situations where you've got people building rooms
Well, they're
without.
not gonna invite you in to check out.
Right,
So the IPMC is intended us to reach out to us with a complaint, say it's an illegal situation or a code violation.
right.
So we'll address that to Councilman Moore's point, but we are concluding a short-term rental task force with the county that will make recommendations to the board in January
Okay.
to make recommendations for new requirements for those short-term rental solutions to try and combat some of the challenges we've seen throughout the entire community. And I'll be happy to share with Matt, once those recommendations are made public,
Yeah.
what we're looking at doing.
Yes, thank you.
It was just recommendations, the board will have to act, but I can make sure that I make this
Right,
available. Unified Development Ordinance. So, one of the biggest things that we did with the UDO is that we took it during the Unified Plan, we said, okay, hey, we need housing. Sell the numbers, right? Well, to get housing, we have to make it easy for people to build housing. We can't make it this burdensome requirement, it takes 6 months, 9 months, and $100,000 just to build a development. It's just what it is. We have to have our own responsibility to take acceptance of what we have to do. So we created new zoning districts, we simplified everything. We created a new residential infill district, because we have a lot of areas in the county that have these oddly shaped parcels that are just too small or kind of weirdly shaped that you really can't do anything with traditionally. So we created this zoning district. It has no minimum lot sizes, no minimum square footage, no minimum unit counts or maximum unit counts. It's designed intentionally to encourage a different type of housing development to infill these areas that are between our existing developments, whether it be a residential to commercial transition or within an existing commercial district to try and help bring a little bit more live work play to the area that where it's appropriate. It's not an industrial area, but those commercial districts we have retail and we have existing businesses kind of happening. There's only 9% of land available left in the county that's undeveloped. If we can't infill as a part of redevelopment, then we have a very limited future we're looking at. We're never going to hit our numbers. We also changed our housing type and sizes. We removed minimum heated floor areas. No longer in the code at all, not a requirement. We added definitions for cottage courts, triplexes, fourplexes, and multiplexes, really focusing on that missing middle type of housing. By the way, because that's why I talk about this, tiny homes, right there. They fit right in there for people who are curious to ask. We further defined and allow for accessory dwelling units within our existing code. Next year, you'll be seeing information hopefully from our office about where ADUs are allowed in our code, the zoning, and the pre-permitted development that will allow people to come in and say, let's say, hey, I want the rose development, permit stamp, go build, done. No more requirements to go through a 60-day review process or to have it go through a permit text oversight. They'll be pre-approved and pre-steps, they can go ahead and build it with the contractor on the site as soon as the permit's issued the very same day.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
We've been resisting accessory dwelling units for the simple fact that 80% of our housing stock is on septic, and that creates huge issues.
Absolutely.
And then B, as you pointed out, a lot of our housing stock is 50s, 60s, early 70s, and they're large lots. They are ripe for redevelopment rather than, if we allow accessory dwelling units, the value to the property owner or the landlord goes up to the point that it will never redevelop. So how are you all looking at that to balance it?
Yeah. So septic lots can't do ADUs. That's not, we just can't do that. It has to be sewer-based lots. That was a limiting factor for the city itself. In terms of redevelopment, the way that we look at ADUs and redevelopment is that you're not going to generate an average rental or an ADU. It's just not going to happen. You're going to be significantly below that. So while you will have some disincentive to want to potentially sell to for redevelopment, it's not going to be so much going to typically make it have the inability to be redeveloped if a developer wants it enough to want to be a part of that solution. What we've seen a lot of is, we saw a great model with Habitat for Humanity, for example, where they built the Habitat development and they put an ADU in every single one of the units. And what they did was they put their clients that qualify for the housing to buy in the ownership unit, the single family unit, and they put the client that was next in line, who still had to do the sweat equity or to go through the process, in the ADU. So the homeowner comes with not just equity in their property, but immediate monthly rental income to pay their mortgage down. And the next one who's going to get, the next people in line are now paying on a formal rent on an ADU and can have stable housing maintained, so they're not going to fall into the process because they all of a sudden have housing security and are facing homelessness as opposed to trying to focus on their financial counseling and the work that they do with Habitat. That works along with, we've seen different areas where we've done targeted redevelopment to bring ADUs into play in entire neighborhoods on mixed, multi-generational housing, where we've seen people who are traditionally in a older neighborhood want to build ADUs to allow for their family to come live with them as a small unit as a downsizing approach. stuff like that has been effective as well. But it definitely can be a potential disincentive for redevelopment. I just don't see it a tipping point for redevelopment.
Matt, are you guys doing anything on financing for ADUs? Because I know sometimes that can be a challenge.
So we're currently looking at both our home and CDBG grants to allow to provide further funding to pay for the ADU development. The trigger there will be the affordability requirement for the end renter, which is not always going to be something that everybody wants to do. So it's going to be a very specialized based program. So we'll be able to do that on those that are willing to develop renter units to those that are 80% AMI or below. But that will be available. And that'll be available throughout the entire county for all those that are part of the urban county, which includes obviously the city of Snellville.
That's fantastic.
And then in our mixed use developments, we've added density bonuses. So we've gone away from the amount of acres per unit allowed. Now it's all FAR, Florida Area Ratio. And we've specifically put in mixed use that if you provide, I think it's 20% of your units to 50% of below AMI, you get a 0.5 FAR bump. If you do another 20% to 30% of below AMI, you get another 0.5 FAR bump. So what was a minimum of 3 FAR on a mixed use development can now be a 4 by simply adding 30% of affordable housing to the development, which is a huge deal for developers. I mean, millions of dollars more in overall annual profit as opposed to just saying, hey, this is the development, this is what you're going to get out of it. We can add more density to it by going vertical or horizontal just because of the affordability piece as well. And lastly, the diversity in housing types. I can talk to you guys all day long about what that means and what all that is, but at the end of the day, it's a fundamental choice. We want to give people the choice to live where they want to live. We don't just want to put all the affordable housing in an area of Norcross, or outside of Snellville, or outside of Lawrenceville. We want to scatter it around, a scattered site mixed income approach. We want to give people the chance to say, hey, I want my kids to go to that school. I want my kids to play at that park. I want to be able to go to that library. And to do that, we have to take an approach that means that we give choice to everyone, everywhere, not just focusing in one place. We've seen that model in this country. It's called public housing. It didn't work. The concentration of affordable housing in one area or in one specific project doesn't work because it doesn't create organic community. Whereas when you mix incomes, you mix the affordability, you mix the community together, you do create a community because no one knows or cares what the bills is paying. They don't care that they paid $400,000, this one paid $250,000. They don't care that they're paying $200 less than rent. What they care about is that everybody's property is maintained, it looks great, and that they all cheer for George on Saturdays. Last I said, that joke did not land well. All right. Last but certainly not least. All right, so earlier this year we created the Affordable Housing Development Fund. We have invested over $22 million in 2024 in affordable housing in the county, a historic level of investment. And in return for the $22 million, we will get more than 1,108, well, just over 1,100 total units of affordable housing. There'll be over 1,700 total units of housing in general. This is a cost of almost $20,000 per unit of investment. I dare you to find another community where you can tell me you can build housing for $20,000 a unit, anywhere in the entire country.
You can't build parking spaces for
That's $25,000 a unit of space right now. This is how you do gap financing. You take projects that are already kind of in the pillars but need a little bit more to get over, another $1 million, $2 million here or there, and we give it to them. We say, now go build it, and they do. This year alone, 644 units have been developed. We have 537 in the pipeline to be developed. In the next year, maybe some of 26, because builders can be slow sometimes with things. But the most important thing is that while we can't invest this much all the time, every year this was a lot of ARPA funds, that's going away, sadly. But we are developing a toolkit that will bring new incentives to the housing conversation that have never existed before in the county. Talking about looking at abatements, CAD policies, looking at density bonuses, looking at how we can remove permit fees, giving priority to those affordable housing developments, but also giving them a liaison to work with through our entire process, from the submission of plans, through rezoning, through the development until the CO is issued. One point of contact, one person to talk to the entire way as a liaison to work it through. We're looking at things like bonds and other opportunities to further fund this work that's ongoing. Because as great as this is to hit historic highs in funding and in up units, that's not $8,500 units a year. It's just not. So we have a lot of work to do. So this is what the county's been doing. I know the city's doing a lot of exciting stuff as well. And I know you have a retreat coming up in January. So I'm happy to answer any questions I can with whatever time is left before you guys need to go over the other items. But what I wanted to do today was really talk to you guys about what we're looking at data-wise, what the city's come from, where it is right now in terms of housing data, and then some of the things we've done to try and accelerate our growth from a affordable housing standpoint. Hopefully maybe percolate with you guys some ideas that you may want to look at or think about in the future as well. And this is one team, one approach. We're all one county. I don't view it as the county unincorporated versus the city. This is one approach that we need to get right, because if we don't get this right, it's not going to be very pretty in 5 to 10 years. So.
Are you having any luck with missing middle housing, the duplexes, quadruplexes, triplexes? Because
Yeah.
nobody wants to build. I mean, everybody, it's townhomes, it's townhomes, it's townhomes, it's townhomes.
So I happen to have an issue with who wanted to build them, but I have people who wanted to fund them. It's been the lender's issue with not unfreezing the capital for that kind of development, because the mortgage rates, the mortgages aren't written in a way to allow for a duplex to be an ownership model to replace the now lost starter home community. And so we're working with a couple lenders on the local level to kind of say, hey, how could you underwrite this, make the commercial loan, a construction loan out, to want to make sure it's incentivized to let the developer can pay it off and not lose money, but also the mortgage underwritten for the home buyer at the end of the day as well, or from a rental perspective as well. So people are interested in building it. They just can't find the private side capital to fund it, and DCA doesn't fund that through tax credit projects. So we're having to do a lot more work on ourselves locally to develop revenue.
Because when you have those burnouts, that would be the perfect place to
Great
go
point.
in and densify within your single family.
And I love the multiplex approach personally, because you can build it in a way that looks like a single family home from the outside, and then once you open the front door, you see the 2 or 3 or 4 unit split. I'm not a fan of the multi-entrance kind of approach to duplexes, quadplexes, or multiplexes. I don't think that really fits into a community like ours, or a community like Snellville specifically. But if it's a single front door with a driveway that pulls behind to a larger parking area, and it looks like a single family home from the front, maybe a little bigger, then no one knows the difference, and it fits in well.
Well, I grew up summers in Wisconsin, and that's the way the zoning model was. There's single-family housing mixed in with 8 plexes, duplexes, and exactly like you said, nobody knows who lives where, and it becomes a solid community.
That's right.
Instead of a stratification based on location.
Absolutely.
So in the UDO, you were talking about providing housing for people making less than $10,000 a year.
Maybe.
I mean,
Yeah.
that realistically, how do you meet that 30% threshold? How do you theoretically even meet that?
That's a good question. So most of that's going to be what we consider to be permanent supportive housing. But we're going to work through a continuum of care, which I sit on the board of, to provide direct funding through the COC to a nonprofit, which then come in and be able to drive not just the tenant, but also the subsidization to make that payment, to try and make sure they can pay closer to the market rate, but that the client is only paying, up to the 30% of their $10,000 a year salary. Outside of the public housing sphere, where they have dedicated funding to that subsidization of true housing costs, you're going to rely a lot more on your COC, permanent supportive housing solutions, to do that. You need the developers to develop it, but then also take the subsidization through the federal government that we get through the state to actually accept the clients in, because they're not going to have the credit score or the deposit to do it. But through the nonprofit work, they can get those in there. We can make that happen, and also guarantee a certain amount of income per month towards the rent, which is traditionally 80 to 90%. Like, it's almost all of it.
And we've also seen people looking at our extended stay hotel that we have here, wanting to turn it into more of an apartment model.
Yep.
And we've pushed back on that, because then they have to meet credit standards and security deposits, whereas with the extended stay, although we don't want it to be a permanent housing and have guidelines in place to keep it from being, it is housing of last resort, and we've fought to make sure it remains available so somebody can walk in and for $300 have a week's, which is better than having to come up with a full month worth of payment and a security deposit and a credit check. How are y'all dealing with such things throughout the county?
So selectively, we don't want to just convert every extended stay into some kind of a market rate apartment building that doesn't really serve the purpose, and without anti-displacement plans for residents staying there.
Well, they say they're affordable.
It's fantastic. What I'd rather see is dedicated set-asides based on income levels and right of first refusal for those that will be displaced by the redevelopment, and appropriately layered with an anti-displacement strategy for where if they can't be rehoused into the development, they have an ability to provide a direct subsidy through the development costs, or find a comparable unit elsewhere they can stay into. As you're very well aware, I come from the homeless world. I've had the unfortunate displeasure of having to place hundreds of families into our extended throughout the entire county. It pains me every day to watch buses stop in front of those things. It just does, because I know what happens there. So I would like to see all of them converted into mixed income approach housing that can be a better asset to the overall community and to the residents who are staying there. But I also understand it has to be done carefully and very intentionally, not just as a haphazard, get rid of all of them, let's just convert them all to anything we want, because you're right. The credit scores, the double deposits, the requirements to get in, any kind of background check flag will disqualify a lot of those potential tenants. So we have to do a much more intentional approach with the right developers that are on board. There are a couple projects that are working right now that I can't get into, unfortunately, here today, that are going to have some really cool developers that are going to do some really innovative things with regards to really minimizing the barriers to getting access to the end units. That has to be the approach we did successfully out west, specifically with conversion, that if you don't have that minimum tenant requirement to try and get people in, all you're doing is taking your problem and you're trying to brush it away into another area or part of the city or part of the county and not really solving anything. You're just moving into the next section or the next part of the next block. That's not a solution. What we need to do is be intentional with those approaches. I think conversion is a way to go forward, but I think conversion, not just in United States, but dilapidated retail, commercial properties, industrial properties, with only so much land available, everything's fair game. Everything has to be looked at differently and be up for a conversation. Doesn't mean we're going to do everything, but everything has to be a conversation to think about. We have some really innovative cities in Gwinnett, and the county itself have done some really cool things and really pushed the envelope of what has ever been thought possible, even 5 years ago to today. My division didn't exist 2 years ago. We exist today. The county never committed anything more than $500,000 to affordable housing as of 2023. It was $32 million now. So we're pushing the envelope consistently. Conversion is certainly a big part of the conversation.
I assume you'll share the slides with Matt, so
I'll even send updated ones on Friday when I have the new data too.
that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
In fact,
Now, if
you
you
can
can
wait
get-
till Friday. and
I'll
send
wait till
us
Friday.
If you can get us the new housing choice numbers from DCA for Snellville, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we put Butch Sanders on it, and it took him 1.5 years, and he finally ended up having to drive down there and walk in somebody's office and say, give me the numbers.
Well, that's one positive board member of DCA is that I can usually ask and get some response. I don't know if it's a direct response, but I'll get a response.
I appreciate that.
Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions
Appreciate your time.
after tonight, please feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. Matt has some contact information available and ask it to you all as much as I can be. So,
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
How far off are we?
6:58.
Right. Item B is discussion of House Bill 581, the floating homestead exemption. Just wanted to talk about this. I know all the council members have had meetings with Matt about what this is. With there being, whether the city opts in or opts out, there will be if we opt in, there will be a cap to county revaluations every year for any homesteaded properties. So it's only residential, owner-occupied residential properties that would be included in this homestead exemption. The part of the state law, it's very confusing. It's going to be a little bit hard to implement. But part of the state law is realizing that the cities would lose tax revenue over time because these houses are not going to be adjusted up as quickly as they would. Matt's calculations out is that in 5 years, it'll impact the city's budget by $1.5 million, which is quite a bit when you're looking at a $10 or $11 million general fund budget. General fund. So that's quite a significant impact. And so the part of this that's supposed to be the component that goes along with it is that there can be a referendum on the ballot for the citizens to vote for a special sales tax to go on so that money is raised through sales taxes versus property taxes. And then the city would take those sales taxes amount that was collected, have to do a lot of calculations, and then go back and we would set a millage rate, and then we would roll that millage rate back to account for what we've collected in sales taxes.
Or what we project
Yes,
to collect.
yes.
And then we have to amend it the next year.
Yeah, and then we'll have to amend it to some other kind of weird number. I mean, kind of our perceptions at this point, and they put in a lot of stuff, a lot of requirements that if any one city opts out of doing this, then you can't do the sales tax referendum.
And
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't go with it.
the county may not be in support of the sales tax.
And any of the cities that might want to opt into this, where it's up to the county to put in a referendum. So we'd have no control over that, and it would be a referendum countywide. And then, of course, you have Gwinnett with 16, maybe 17 cities that we're dealing with. And then you have one city in 4 different counties. And then you have another city that's in 2 or 3 different counties. So a lot of different dynamics playing around in this. To me, just the whole process with the property tax caps and then the sales tax backfill kind of thing takes all understanding for a citizen. There's all understanding of how their property tax, the millage rate, the tax is calculated, the tax is assessed, goes out the window. I mean, right now, the process, it's very hard for people to understand, you know, how it works, that your property's valued, but you take that value times 40%, and then you take that by a millage rate, and that creates your tax, you know, amount. People, it's very hard to explain. And it's very hard for people to understand that this millage rate, you know, this little increase or this decrease, this is what it impacts you when it gets down to your property tax bill. Well, any kind of understanding of that completely goes out the window with this whole scenario.
Like, the only thing they're gonna understand is whether or not you get the exemption or not locally.
Right,
You know, that'll be the bottom line,
yeah.
ultimately, the slice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit bizarre, but that being what it is, the feeling is that at least the cities that we're talking to are gonna opt in. We'll have to make a decision, well, we have to make the decision now.
With only 4 of us here.
Well, I mean, not tonight specifically, but if we were to opt, what is it where you have to do the meetings? If we opt out of doing this homestead exemption, we have to have public meetings, and the advertising for those public meetings have to start. The deadline is March 1st, is what they say, but the advertisement for the public meetings would have to start before the end of
We have
December.
to send it to the newspaper.
So if I can just chime in, I may have shared this with y'all already. This sounds fabulous. Who doesn't want their tax or their valuation, especially as we've seen them. I've had one of my house go from 180 to 360 over the last 3 years, which is a huge impact on what I pay in taxes. The flip side of that is I also have rental property, and those rental properties are going to continue to have that valuation go up every year, and which means those taxes are going to go up every year. And as much as I love all my tenants and would love to cut my own income to not have to raise rent, someone is going to bear the cost of that increased tax burden on every one of those properties, and it will be disparately put on the people who we just heard are struggling to pay their rent. So although all us really, high-paid, wealthy people, like this Hardwick here, are going to have our property taxes assessment frozen. Those people who are struggling with rent increases are going to have their rent increase disproportionately. On top of that, if Barbara's property tax is frozen and, it claims that we have, only 14% of our properties, which I think is woefully short, are rentals, then 20. So 80% of our properties, residential properties, their valuation will be frozen. We will be forced to raise our millage rate, which will then to bring in the income we need to meet our expenses. And that will disproportionately, once again, affect those people who live in our rental properties who are the least able to bear that increased cost. Not taking into account we're very, very retail heavy. They will get no property tax break, and their assessments will continue to go up. So we are giving the people who, and I know many of our owner occupants are on fixed income, but we're giving them a benefit at the expense of the people who can least afford it. And
it's not only, you're not just talking about residential, you're talking about it's impacting any business owner as well, because you're the only way to offset barring that a sales tax gets passed, which I don't see the county putting that on the referendum, especially with the transit tax not passing 3 times now. I just don't think there's an appetite for them to put that on. I don't know. But even if they opt in, I don't think that they're gonna do the sales tax.
So they're just gonna take a bath? There's gonna have to be something.
Something. But and we woefully have no time.
Is the 80% owners here, would they all,
if you have,
would they all be able to claim a homestead exemption? All 80% of owners, every owner?
the 80% is based on the number of properties on our tax digest that are currently owner occupied, which means the only way they can tell that is if it has homestead exemption.
And then the requirements for the homestead are just that you live there. You're single, sole residence, correct? You can't have like 15.
You supposedly you can't, but let's just say when I checked on a neighbor who was a rental that was kind of loud and needed to have the police come out, and I went and searched for the owner of the property, I found a number of properties under that individual's name.
Yeah, see, that's...
So, and I know of another property in my neighborhood where the gentleman lived there 15 years ago. It's still owner occupied on the tax rolls, but he's been gone for 14 years.
Yeah, they have to clean all that.
And how do you police that? There is no mechanism for us to police that. I've asked. The city doesn't have a way to police that. It's a county issue.
And the county.
Well, one of the things that kind of struck me is I'm still struggling to understand this. I will be the first to admit. But what struck me when I first read that summary that Nat did for us was that this passed by 60-some% of the voters in the county. Now, if we opt out and we have to have public hearings, then we're going to say, okay, we're not going to
listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard ask.
Yep.
That's what I think is to me, that was the hardest thing to swallow with opting out.
Well, The legislators did a very good job of.
Yeah, well, and
backing
I don't
this in.
think most people that read that on the ballot, I don't think they understood
I
it.
mean,
No.
the person, the regular person just hears taxes, lower, freeze, asset. And you know, I mean, everybody that's.
Yeah.
And I think
everybody wants to
the
lock
theory
themselves.
of it is awesome. You know, that you don't get, there's so many people, especially when you look at like inner city and Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, you can see lots of examples down there where areas that were, that people have lived for years and years, but it's redeveloping all around them, and suddenly their properties are so valuable, they can't stay there because their taxes have gone up. So, I mean, the theory of it is spot on. It keeps people who have long time been in that home from having to get pricing out of the
It
market.
guards them from gentrification.
Right,
That's
right.
basically-
And I think that's awesome, and that's the way it reads on, you know, for the referendum. And I think the challenge, and I'm kind of with you, Gretchen, you know, that's kind of the majority, and Matt looked, it's the majority, it was like that 60%
Yeah, I think
in Snellville's precincts as well.
It was 60 to 65.
Yeah, something like that, and countywide as well. So you can't ignore that, but I think the challenge is gonna fall on future councils on how to manage that in the budget. I mean, it's gonna mean higher millage rates in the future because you're not gonna have that sales tax to offset it. And, so it's definitely gonna be challenging because you're gonna have to make up that revenue somehow. And it will come in the form of higher millage rates, which then, you know, as we talked about,
That would be.
it's gonna hit the rental market.
Too.
It's gonna, you know, and then it's gonna hit the business community as well. And I mean, and honestly, you look at a big box like Target and Walmart, and you're like, who cares if they pay more property taxes, right?
Well, it's gonna get passed along.
But it'll get passed along to those smaller stores that are trying to open, or the smaller commercial businesses that we have, the local commercial businesses as well.
Well, personally, I think we are best served by saying we are gonna opt out and start the process, because if we don't start the process, we have to take what the state has decided to ram down our throat. And just because we start the process doesn't mean we have to do it. I would rather start the process and give us the opportunity to opt out than let our opportunity to opt out go and have the potential of damaging
Yeah, because if you
the
opt
people
out,
who can
that's
least afford it.
permanent, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
does the
that's-
county have to opt it in too at a certain time? Or
I guess, you know, I've only.
I mean, it seems like.
Like at the same time.
Yeah, everybody.
When, and that's when.
Automatic
Gotta be finished by
inclusion
March.
unless you.
It's gotta be finished by March, but you gotta start your public meeting, so you have to have advertising.
Whereas floss does not,
No,
even if
right.
you do,
That's a thing.
then floss is just a 5 years, who knows when it's approved.
That's not for everybody. Oof. I just don't see how you come out ahead when you try to opt out and it's been approved already.
Well,
It gives us an opportunity to educate on what it really means.
but
Let's keep the discussion up here.
yeah.
Sorry, we had a little side.
Not to give any inside secrets, when we discussed this at the Gwinnett Municipal Intergovernmental Relations Group, everybody said, there's no way we can go against this. People are going to pillory us. And I said, hell yes, there's a way you can go against this, because this is going to hurt the least able to afford it in our communities. And that message hasn't been out there. And nobody thinks about that, because you have to have a pretty high level understanding of the whole, how that market works. But it's very easy to explain. Did it make sense?
I mean, I totally get it, I think.
Okay, so
That's it.
yeah. Thank you. So I don't have a problem going out on a limb and trying to explain that. And if, I mean, I don't know if I'm running for re-election next year or not, but that'd be a wonderful thing to get thrown out of office for, is because I was against tax freeze. Because I want to protect the people who Matt Elder just told us are struggling mightily. And in somebody's good intention, we are throwing those people under a bus. Just as the government, by incredibly 54% across the board increase in Section 8 housing payments, is forcing people out of their homes because I can make more money going to a government subsidized, but that's a different story. So I would ask you to let's please start the process to opt out. If we see that our citizens are clearly against it, we can decide not to.
When's the first advertisement date that would have to go? Do we have
December
a?
30th.
Yeah, that's right.
December 30th for that first meeting in January.
So you don't think we'll be really criticized for going against the voters' wishes?
Well,
If
the
we start the
voters,
process of opting out, it doesn't mean we're going against the voters.
Well, I
It means
realize
we're opening
that,
the
but-
door.
We're opening the door to
To
discussion.
discussion, and we can have a town hall that gives us an opportunity to hear back and to communicate what it actually means versus what that little tiny
Well,
box said on
I
the
think that
ballot.
would have to be the emphasis, communicating what it
That's-
means as
yeah.
opposed to
Right.
we're not gonna agree to do what
Exactly.
60-some% of the voters ask us to do.
well,
Yeah.
but those are the same people who constantly hear from about, what are you doing for the homeless? Why are people, all these people are getting evicted? What can we do to stop that? And it may sound stupid, but
It's gonna be a hard sell.
it is going to be a hard sell. It is going to be a hard sell.
Yeah.
I want lower taxes too.
Well, and maybe it's not a selling, it's a discussion,
Well,
an
and-
opportunity for discussion.
And if the public is incredibly against it, then certainly they're the people who put us here.
You'll know fast.
Yeah.
Once that ad goes out. It won't take long, like a yellow zoning sign, boom. And that's that's what it takes for people to,
Well,
that'll be the indicator.
Because people are not gonna understand it.
Well, y'all sleep on this, and then,
Go,
It's a little hard.
we have to know whether or not to run the ad for,
well, yeah, by December 30th, but we don't have to do a formal vote to go ahead
Okay.
and do the meetings. Right? Yeah.
You got another.
We can just say, hey, we're scheduling these
Yeah.
public hearing meetings for y'all to come in and give us your thoughts on, hear an explanation of exactly what's happening, what this is about, this is the way we believe it's going, this is what the impact will be to the city budget in, what did you do, was that 5 or 7 years that you projected out?
Try to do 8.
So, this is kind of where the city would be headed, and this would be the ramification of that, how you would cover that shortfall. Just put that information out there, and then it's like, let us hear what you think.
Like a town hall style.
Yeah.
And all the public hearings fall on the same dates as, we've made them fall on the same dates as regular council meetings with just some time adjustments. So,
And just for the point of discussion, before disclosure, so if the city does decide to opt out, that's what we do, then the legislature can do a local act with a mandate that you have to do it. So there is that caveat as well. So some cities whose state reps were sponsors of the bill, that was part of their reasoning to stay in and not opt out, because they felt like it was just going to be a matter of time that they would be compelled to participate. So there's a lot of political implications, as Gretchen kind of talked about, but as well as financial. I mean, it is frustrating that with all these consequences, you have 2 months, 2 months, 3 months to make a decision that lasts a lifetime. Once you opt in, you are in. There is no opting out.
well, I would be more than happy to, the mayor or whoever else, try to get our new delegation, our new 4 representatives and 2 or 3 senators who represent us, to come here, have a meeting and explain the position that I laid out and ask them
Yeah.
what's their thoughts, because.
And what are they gonna do to help those homeowners? I mean, those
Well,
renters.
I don't want to put them in that position, because quite frankly, right now, they would not be able to move anything through the legislature to help, whether they wanted to or not, because they are in a minority, and, you can't expect them to be able to find a solution for a problem somebody else caused
Yeah.
if you can't push it through. But I don't want to, as some of our sister cities have done, is pee on their leg and have them come back and push through local legislation to force us to do it. That just defeats the whole purpose of trying to protect the integrity of the system, such as it is currently.
If we were to opt out and the state were to come back and compel us, can the state pick and choose? Like they could
They
make
could do
us
it.
and Loganville
I
do
think-
it, and the Logan School, they can stay out?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be all or nothing.
I thought it was all,
No, well, no,
I think
local
they could do
legislation
local
can force
legislation
any
to do-
single city into,
That's the key.
what did you say, Barbara? It was?
Yeah,
I think they can do it targeted to like Gwinnett County or.
probably to go, I mean, they can do whatever they want, really.
I don't know how often that really happens.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never even heard of that happening, but it doesn't mean that it
Well,
can't happen.
Right.
I don't want to antagonize them.
No, I certainly, I'm just throwing it out there
Just
that,
wondering.
that is a possibility.
That happens a good deal where special homestead exemptions are approved.
Right.
Not this way, but it's always generated by the city requesting it.
That's right.
So that discrimination happens regularly. Often do that. I don't think anybody's thought through, but I think the referendum was totally misleading. And I think that's easy to explain. Nobody understands how complicated this is. It was terrible. And it was not on my ballot. I mean, in terms of complexity. The discrimination issue is one between, the way it hit me is it gives you an ability to really socket 2 businesses and give protection. You can raise your taxes, protect your homeowners, and socket 2 businesses. That's what it looks like. What I didn't think about was, okay, it's all non-residential owned properties. So there is this huge rental market that gets shellacked with the businesses.
Is that like your Airbnbs and your other places too, or just your individual property?
No, those probably have some exemptions with them because they're owner occupied too.
Right.
Well, some
Some of them are.
Airbnbs are, some aren't.
Right. So all those that are.
But, never mind.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time. But, so let's everybody sleep on it. We can talk and figure out, but we'll just need to, if we want to go ahead with the public hearings, we just gotta make sure that Melissa can get this ads run. With the, to do the meetings.
But it wouldn't hurt us to run the ads, even if we would
Right,
decide
right.
that upon sleeping on it, that, maybe we don't want to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think any chance you have for good discussion, I mean, because it will impact the city going forward. I mean, for the minute we opt in, it's gonna impact the way we set the millage rate and all of that stuff. And when you start getting out to those bigger numbers, that million and a half impact on your budget, because your digest isn't increasing.
Future councils would not be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, that's some pretty severe cuts across the city or some pretty high millage rate increases.
And those millage rate increases are gonna disproportionately affect the renters and the commercial business.
You'd have to do it quickly. Your budget would be affected instantaneous. I mean, it's
Well,
gonna be
next
done,
year
you
it
know,
will be,
the-
yeah.
The millage rate discussion, if you don't opt out, is right in front of
Yeah.
you. You can't balance your budget where you are now.
I don't understand how the tax assessor's office is going to, and the tax commissioner of Gwinnett County, how they are gonna be able to get any of this done.
That's why you got a potential for a larger entity coming in and shutting it all down. I mean, the system's all tied together. It's gonna be administratively impossible if you have a couple of outliers in one tax area who get convoluted. That's great.
Okay, oh, we are running out of time. Do you have anything on your projects that you need to?
You sound so disappointed.
He's not doing anything.
Exec session too, do
Oh.
we need to come back after the
I
meeting
think
to do
we
that?
can, I think we can do the vacation in January.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think
That's fine.
okay, okay. So the city of Milton, have y'all been keeping up with this?
Oh, wow.
That a vehicle left the roadway, hit a sign, and somebody in the vehicle died. And the city did not get sovereign immunity, basically, and the city was given an award or penalized $30 million or $35 million for this one accident. The larger thing, Tony will talk about it going to the sovereign immunity issue, but you also, I mean, you look at anything that is not in the roadway that's a potential hazard for somebody, and what do you do with all of that? I mean, in order to reduce your liability, you now need to have all the telephone poles removed. You need to have all the subdivision signs that might be on the right of way, and really a subdivision would need to change it if it's on their private property, homeowner's property, because now they're potentially at risk. I mean, you're talking about people leaving the roadway, crashing into a tree that might be on the right of way, and being exposed for $30–40 million damage suits. So this resolution that we've got on the agenda tonight is the city of Milton has been asking cities to join in support of their brief that they're planning to file. You explain that with the Supreme Court.
It's just, we're joining the GMA law group in a brief that was written in order to support the protection of sovereign immunity. So it's really in our best interest to do that.
And I saw in the latest email too, Walton EMC, or several of the utilities are joining in as well, because, I mean, all of their stuff, how many people hit telephone poles every year. So it's got far-reaching.
Wasn't this like a flower pot, like some
It
big
is, a
thing
planter.
that was
Yeah.
in
But it
and,
was in the right of way.
yeah, but it was a privately owned planter that ended up kind of
It was
being
not.
publicly owned,
When
right?
it's in the right of way, it's not
Exactly.
publicly owned.
Right, it was out, it was theirs.
If you want to say it that way, then every brick mailbox,
Yes.
every mailbox is.
That's the rub.
We would be liable for that because we allow it in our right of way,
It's a,
which is untenable.
But yet that mailbox has to be there for US Postal Service.
Right.
the Fed says so.
Well, and same with telephone.
Yeah.
So,
Where's your power?
but that is what that resolution is about. Is there anything you want to pick off of here that you need?
Just really quickly, one thing. So the brewery has received its building permitting from the county for the brewery section. And we expect that we'll give our approval in the next week or so. And they'll be starting on build out of the brewery portion of Cricket Can next week.
Just want to confirm retreat date.
It's February 8th. Gretchen, you can February 8th.
Yep.
Was it 8th or
February
9th?
8th.
Eight.
Matt, sometime after the first of the year perhaps, could you arrange for those of us that would like to tour the market building, to go look at it?
Sure. Bring your shoes.
Yeah.
There's no,
I wouldn't want to come
it's like
barefoot.
a, well, I mean, it's like a.
Stiletto
greenhouse in-
Don't wear your heels.
You're running around in stilettos every day.
Absolutely.
Not me.
It's kind of disorienting when you walk in a Scrabble
Yeah,
board.
she's
It's Kurt, yeah. Kurt will be in the stilettos.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been by there, but they did put some, like, signs
Well,
up in the windows.
The parade went by there,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we've all been by
Did you
there.
notice it?
Yeah.
Just to show some scenes of what it.
There's signs up on the restaurants too, did you see?
I didn't.
It says opening early 2025.
Well, they got
Far
that
side.
frame. It was
Far
clear.
side.
But they made that 5 removable.
Stop.
7 a.m. All right, we'll see y'all in there. We're already late. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and second. All right, we'll see you in there.